Picture this. A broken potter sits among the shards of what was once his masterpiece. The clay vessel, meant to hold precious oil, lies scattered across the workshop floor. But instead of discarding the fragments, he begins to gather them, not to remake the same vessel, but to create something even more beautiful. This ancient scene holds the key to understanding a Hebrew word that has been mistranslated for centuries, robbing believers of its transformative power. The word we translate as grace in English barely scratches the surface of what the Hebrew scriptures reveal. What you're about to discover will shatter every shallow understanding you've had about Yahweh's favor and replace it with something so profound. It will change how you approach every trial, every failure, every moment of desperation in your life. If you're hungry for biblical truths that transform, hit subscribe to join our journey into the mysteries that have been hidden in plain sight. We live in a world that has reduced grace to a theological concept, something we discuss in Sunday school but struggle to experience in our deepest moments of need. When addiction grips our loved ones, when financial ruin threatens our security, when depression clouds our vision, we cry out for Yahweh's grace, but often feel like we're grasping at shadows. But what if I told you that the Hebrew understanding of grace isn't passive at all? What if it's not just unmerited favor, but something far more active, more tangible, more life-altering? In Exodus 34 verse 6, when Yahweh reveals his character to Moses, he declares, "Yahweh, Yahweh, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness." The Hebrew word translated as gracious, here channuwn, carries a meaning that goes far beyond our English understanding. It's about divine action, not just divine attitude. This revelation came at a crucial moment. Israel had just committed the golden calf apostasy, and Moses was interceding for a people who deserved judgment. Yet Yahweh's response wasn't just forgiveness. It was a demonstration of something the ancient Hebrews understood, but we've largely forgotten. This same divine principle is what enabled Joseph to forgive his brothers, what sustained David through his failures, and what transformed the Apostle Paul from persecutor to proclaimer. The enemy of our souls has worked overtime to keep this truth buried, because when believers truly understand the Hebrew concept of grace, they become unstoppable forces for Yahweh's kingdom. Let me take you deeper into the Hebrew text, where scholars have discovered layers of meaning that illuminate this mystery. The Hebrew word behind gracious comes from a root, chanan, that means to bend down or to stoop in kindness. Picture a king leaving his throne to lift up a beggar, not just giving him coins, but personally raising him to his feet. But here's where it gets profound. This same Hebrew root appears in Hannah's prayer in 1 Samuel 1 verse 11, where she cries out to Yahweh for a child. She doesn't just ask for favor, she asks Yahweh to bend down to her affliction. And when he does, the result isn't just the birth of Samuel, it's the birth of a prophet who would anoint kings and reshape a nation. Consider Yeshua's encounter with the woman caught in adultery in John 8 verses 1 to 11. When the religious leaders bring her for judgment, Yeshua stoops down and writes in the dust. The Greek word used here, katakipto, mirrors the Hebrew concept we're exploring. He literally bends down, embodying the grace he extends. But notice, his grace doesn't just forgive, it transforms. Go and sin no more, he says. This is grace as divine empowerment, not just divine pardon. The Apostle Paul understood this Hebrew concept when he wrote in 2 Corinthians 12 verse 9, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." The word sufficient here means to be strong enough or to ward off. Paul discovered that Yahweh's grace wasn't just comfort in his thorn, it was divine strength that enabled him to overcome. This isn't the passive grace of popular theology. This is aggressive, transformative, kingdom-advancing grace that changes everything it touches. Here's the life-changing secret that has been hidden in the Hebrew text. Grace isn't just Yahweh's unmerited favor. It's his divine intervention that bends the very fabric of reality to restore what was broken and elevate what was lowly. The Hebrew word for grace appears in a fascinating context in Jeremiah 31 verse 2. The people who survived the sword found grace in the wilderness. But the Hebrew reveals something stunning. They didn't just find grace, like stumbling upon a treasure. The original language suggests they encountered it face to face. Grace met them. Grace pursued them. Grace intercepted their path of destruction and redirected their destiny. This is why Psalm 84 verse 11 declares, "For Yahweh God is a sun and shield. Yahweh bestows favor and honor. No good thing does he withhold from those who walk uprightly." The word favor here is the same Hebrew concept we've been exploring. It's not just blessing. It's divine intervention that removes obstacles, opens doors, and creates opportunities that didn't exist before. When Yeshua taught us to pray, "Give us this day our daily bread," he was echoing this Hebrew understanding. Some biblical scholars suggest the word daily could mean necessary for existence or even supersubstantial, though this interpretation is debated among experts. Whether we take it literally or symbolically, we're asking for Yahweh's gracious intervention in our daily needs, his divine bending down to meet us where we are. This truth operates under Yahweh's sovereignty, not our manipulation. It's not about demanding from God, but about understanding that his grace is actively working to restore, heal, and transform according to his perfect will and timing. So, how do we live in this Hebrew understanding of grace? Let me give you 3 practical steps that will revolutionize your faith. Step 1. Recognize grace as divine intervention. Stop seeing your circumstances as random events and start looking for Yahweh's gracious intervention. When you face opposition, ask, "How is Yahweh's grace bending down to meet me here?" Keep a journal of these encounters. You'll begin to see patterns of divine intervention you never noticed before. Step 2. Position yourself for grace. Grace isn't passive, and neither should you be. Like Hannah, pour out your heart before Yahweh with specificity and persistence. Like the woman with the issue of blood, press through obstacles to touch the hem of his garment. Position yourself in places and practices where you can encounter his intervening grace, in prayer, in his word, in community with other believers. Step 3. Extend grace as divine empowerment. When you truly understand grace as Yahweh's power that bends down to lift up, you become a conduit of that same grace to others. Look for opportunities to stoop down in kindness, to intervene in someone's difficult situation, to be the answer to someone's prayer for grace. Let me share a testimony that illustrates this truth in action. Christabel, a single mother from Michigan, wrote to me about her experience with this Hebrew understanding of grace. She was facing eviction, her son was struggling with addiction, and she felt completely overwhelmed. But instead of just praying for help, she began to pray specifically for Yahweh's chanan, his divine intervention. "I stopped begging and started believing," she wrote. "I asked Yahweh to bend down to my situation, to intervene in ways only he could." Within 2 weeks, a former co-worker offered her a better-paying job. A Christian counselor agreed to work with her son pro bono. Her landlord unexpectedly offered a payment plan. "It wasn't coincidence," Sarah testified. "It was grace. Yahweh literally bending the circumstances of my life to lift me up." This isn't prosperity theology or name it and claim it. This is understanding that Yahweh's grace is his active, intervening power working within his perfect will and timing, often in ways we never could have orchestrated ourselves. I want you to do something right now that will activate this truth in your life. Type grace in the comments below. Declare that you're ready to experience Yahweh's grace not just as forgiveness, but as divine intervention that bends down to lift you up. Let's create a community of believers who understand grace as transformative power, not passive acceptance. If this revelation has ignited something in your spirit, hit that like button to spread this truth to others who need to discover the Hebrew heart of grace. And make sure you're subscribed with the bell notification on, because we're just getting started on this journey into the mysteries of Yahweh's Word. Want to unlock deeper intimacy with Yahweh? I've created a powerful resource called 7 Hidden Names of God that reveals the Hebrew meanings behind God's names that will transform your prayer life. Grab your free copy in the description below or check out our latest community post for the direct link. This isn't just information, it's transformation. When you understand grace as divine intervention, you'll never face a problem the same way again. The broken potter I mentioned at the beginning, he created something called kintsugi, the art of repairing broken pottery with gold, making it more beautiful than before. This is the Hebrew picture of grace. Yahweh doesn't just fix what's broken, he makes it more glorious than it ever was. Whatever feels shattered in your life right now, whatever seems beyond repair, remember that Yahweh's grace is his power to intervene, to bend down, to lift up, and to restore with golden threads of his glory. You're not just forgiven, you're being transformed into a masterpiece that displays his intervening power. Next week, we're diving into another Hebrew mystery that will revolutionize your understanding of Scripture, a hidden truth that's been right in front of us all along, waiting to transform how you see Yahweh's power in your life. Subscribe and hit that bell to join us on this journey of uncovering Yahweh's mysteries. Your breakthrough is not just possible, it's promised to those who understand the true nature of his grace. Until next time, live in the power of his gracious intervention. Shalom.